Hello and welcome back to Advanced Hwoarang Lessons. Today's lesson, we'll be covering up plus frames this time. Right, plus frames from LFS1, RFS2, down 3-4, RFF4, RFFD4, so many. But this move is like RFF forward 3 on, in terms of a frame advantage. I mean, look at that plus 12. And then it's like you can never press, because if you press, you're gonna get counter hit by LFS forward 3. I'm talking about LFF F4. So F4, this move, is 17 to 23 frames. As you can see, the startup changes. Or rather, it's not changing right now. I'm always getting 18 frames. There you go, 19. I don't know what influences the startup on this move, but just know that the move will roughly come out at 17 to 23 frames. There, finally got it at 17. Because earlier, when I was labbing it, I was not getting 17 frames. I was sitting roughly at the 18 to 20 range all the time. So, while it does come out at 17 to 23, you can say it comes out roughly at like 18 to 20. More often than not, if you just press the button normally. Now, this 17 to 23 frame move is plus 19 on hit. Of course, you can see it's pushing up all the way to 20. But this 19 you see here, or 20 you see, is G. So this is plus 19 G. So if I try to press something here, like a 17 frame RFS D4, that will get blocked. So no, you don't have something that's guaranteed on hit. On block, this move is plus 8. Plus 8 on the low end and plus 12 on the high end. As you see, it pushes to plus 10 from time to time. And of course, that will make this a counter hit launcher if someone decides to press on F4 on block. Case in point, let's record it. F4, RFS D4, I'm going to mash. Yeah. So your opponent will not want to get hit by that. And that's really what's going to scare them on block and on hit. Now on counter hit, this is plus 19. But not, what do you call this? Enough to the point where you're allowed to press moves that should fit in, like let's say an RFS 4, which is 14 frames. So it's plus 19G, but in that plus 19G on counter hit, RFS F4 still counter hit. So if you know that your opponent did press a button after LFF F4, you can just press RFS F4. However, you cannot press RFS F44 to get the full launch. So most you get is just an RFS F4, and you're like plus 3 in front of the face. In the RFS F4 mix-up, link is in the description below. Now on block, let's say you get this move to hit, right? My recommended options for you to use are probably just all mids. So RFS DF4, RFS 1, RFS forward 3, and 2 highs. RFS F4, because this move will just never get interrupted, and RFS 2, if you just want to play it safe, like LFS 1. So, against all these options on block, we record them all here, your opponent cannot just challenge them easily. We have it all recorded here. So I'm just going to try to challenge with a regular jab, and of course a down jab. Just the two most basic options to challenge. So if you press against RFS 2, you'll lose if you press a high, or any mid, like a DF1. But you'll win with a high crush. Same thing will apply against RFS F4, except your jab will not even come out as an input, including your DF1. So they're locked in place. But if they press a jab... Oh, you can't even press a down jab. You can't. That's interesting. That was not what I expected. So they can't even high crush it on block. So if they block the F4, they pretty much just have to ride the RFS F4 mix-up immediately. So this is one of the things you can do. I'm really trying to mash everything. Back 1, can't mash that. Down jab, I'm not allowed to mash that either. I can't press anything. Wow, okay, this is like a real lock. So if you wanted to keep them in place, let's say there's only how many 2 to 3 seconds left on the clock. This might be a good idea to throw out because you've taken away effectively 1.5 seconds from the clock. Now, this is RFS DF4, I believe. Yep, counter hit launch. If they press a jab, press a down jab. And if they press a DF1. We move on to RFS 1. Gonna interrupt pretty much any option if the opponent decides to interrupt you. And the same should apply to RFS forward 3 on basic challenges, right? Because if they do something else, as let's say something super evasive versus these options, like let's say a back one, Hwoarang's back one is very evasive. It's going to beat a good number of these. So it's going to beat the RFS 2. It can't beat the RFS F4 because that's a real lock. So it's going to beat RFS DF4. It's going to beat... Oh no, RFS 1 will still keep you in place. That's one option you can run. However, not at range 1, right? No, even at range 1. It will win. But not at range 0? From time to time. Just bring it into lab for consistency checks. And RFS forward 3 will win at both ranges. Why am I checking both ranges? Because when I was labbing earlier, I noticed a little thing. So the tracking of these moves on block kind of differ at range 1, which is what you get when you position reset, and range 0 when you're pretty much in front of your opponent's face. So I'm going to double check it here again. So I have Hwoarang slated to sidestep right because you want to step towards the stomach, right? So if I throw out F4, RFS D4, that will hit. If I go range 0, it still hits. How about range 1, RFS 1? That hits. Range 0, RFS 1, still hits. F4 into RFS forward 3, still hits. So against an average sidestep, like Hwoarang's, you pretty much are going to hit your opponent at these ranges. However, that will not hit versus characters with stronger sidesteps. So let's use Lily, who is an extreme outlier in this situation. So if you were to use F4 versus a character like Lily, so if you do F4 at range 1, alright. So that's range 1 of RFS DF4. How about range 0? Oh, okay. It's just gone. So basically, you cannot use that as a follow-up versus Lily. How about RFS 1? Okay, that still hits at range 1. Does that differ at range 0? Yes, it does. How about RFS forward 3? Okay, hits at range 1. How about range 0? Alright, consistent. So you can see there's differing levels. So RFS DF4 is the one that loses on both ranges. This only wins at one range, and this wins at both ranges. Now, of course, for the highs, they're gonna... Well, like RFS F4 is gonna lock you in. There's really not much they can do about it. But the RFS 2, you saw that, wins at range 1, loses at range 2. So that's something you have to keep track of, depending of the matchup you're playing. And the one you want to keep count of is the distance that the character can step. Of course, if it's like backdashing, the options I did mention, I believe it's only RFS DF4 that will lose. So if, let's say you do it at range 0, oh, it didn't even lose it. You're fine. Again, this is +8 minimum on block. So that's fine. RFS 1, RFS forward 3, RFS 2, that's the one where it whiffs, but it won't whiff at range 2, right? Yeah, it will not. And then, of course, this just keeps them in place. It's gonna be my new favorite thing to do every time I press F4. But yeah, that covers the tracking on block, and the backdashing. Now, this move does track towards Hwoarang's right. So if I do, let's say, a jab into F4, it should lose versus sidestep left and sidewalk left. But versus sidestep right, it should hit, even against a character who has a really, really good sidestep. And that's, of course, at range 0. Of course, that's after +1 on block. How about at +5? Still hits at versus sidestep right. And then sidewalk right. Still hits. So if your opponent is stepping towards that side, you can kind of just hit them with an F4. And you're going to watch yourself become +18 on hit. +18G on hit, and you can work something with that. Something like that. Yeah, that could work. Or maybe lock them with an RFS 1 or RFS forward 3 or an RFS F4. Now, I think this is just a little bit funny that this happens from time to time. I don't know why. Okay, not against a really good sidestep, it seems. But if I bring it back to an average sidestep, so we call back Hwoarang here. Like, if you see the way the kick goes, kind of like goes back to his right. He's like hooking it, right? The right foot hooks back towards the opponent's left. So if you try to do this against sidestep left, let's say you jab into F4, you see that? It's a little funny, but it doesn't work at range 0. It only works at range 1. Another tiny tidbit that you have to take note of when labbing stuff in Tekken. So this move has a lot of combo utility. As you can see, this is the Season 2 B&B. So they tell you, right, back 3, F4, back 3, FF4, RFS 4 into whatever ender. But you can see F4 is used there to achieve that high height. And you can also do it like stand switch into this, and then so on and so forth. So you can usually see it in the middle of combos. Although you can use it also at the end of combos, so say F4, and then something like that. Like for short wall carry. You also see it in wall enders, wherein if it's against male hurt boxes are higher, there's F4, RFS2, RFF forward 3, F4. And then F4 2, like any variation into the wall standing 4-4, or if you just want to spike them with RFS DF4, like the combo utility on this move is really, really high. Something like that, I don't know. So if you want to like go crazy with combo video ideas, this move pretty much always has your back, so to speak. Like this is mine. I use F4 twice in this combo. I can actually do it thrice if I wanted to. So F4 stand switch into another F4, then walk up F4 RFS back 4. But I think you need to like be really, really fast to catch the heels of the opponent as they fall down. Yeah. So basically that's a short overview on F4. Like you don't see this move come out often because it does come out at 17 to 23 frames, and usually when you're throwing it out in practice mode comes out 18 to 19. So I don't know again what heavily influences its startup, but if you can figure it out, let me know in the comments. We'd really, really love to know. Because this move should get some love, just like RFF forward 3. Because here, you know how you're locking them in, and if they're like always blocking, you can just get your down 3-4. Same thing applies on like F4 if your opponent's always blocking after it. Like they know the frames. Because if they don't know, and I guarantee you, most players would not know because this move barely comes out. They would not know this is like +8 to +12, so they're gonna get counter hit. But if they once they get counter hit, they're gonna get scared, right? So at that point, you're running with like a huge 50-50 because again, you're sitting at RFS, the king of 50-50s. But if you don't want to like go into the hell sweep because you're afraid of the stagger and you don't want to go to the -10 or the -13, it's like, do I transfer over to the RFS F4 mix-up? Do I stand switch to like take full advantage? Or do I reset into RFS 2 and then play with the +5? And unlike just walking into a 1-2-4 on block, or an up 4 on block, or RFS F4 on block, you don't really have to like think so hard in regards to like safety. Because in the RFS F4 mix-up, it's like, okay, do I press RFS F4 again, or do I finally reset the RFS 2 or anything else? And then when you do it off like 1-2-4, it's like, do I use RFS F4 to protect me, or do I do something like RFS 2 or like a snake edge or whatever, right? The same thing applies to like RFF4. Basically anything that puts you in right flamingo that isn't plus enough on block, or like isn't higher than +3. So F4, at least, if the 50-50 does get blocked, let's say you go into a hell sweep, or RFS DF4, or RFS back 3, or RFS of forward 4 if that's your thing, you can always just stay safe. Easily. Because it's just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? That didn't work. Okay, I'll just do this. And then I'm okay. And then your opponent's just like, oh, well, they're safe again. And then now they're gonna think, okay, it's safe option or 50-50. That's the beauty of just having, what do you call that? Not beauty, that's the advantage of having high plus frames. But this should see some love. Like maybe try to fit it in after like an LFS 1 and play around with it. Down 3-4, stand switch, LFS 1, F4. Or Wavu, SS4, RFF forward 3, LFS 1, F4. I don't know, running 3 into F4. Use it. Use F4 from time to time and see what works best for you to continue dealing damage with Hwoarang. That has been the lesson for today. I've been Frontier, and I'll see you in the next advanced Hwoarang lesson.